I believe that if we find in the next several months that we're not making the progress that we have, we should probably absolutely consider embedding some soldiers with.
The Army's retiring Chief of Staff, General Ray Odierno, at his final press conference yesterday at the Pentagon, raising the specter that U.S. boots on the ground may be required to fight ISIS. Would that make a huge difference? Let's talk about it now with two gentlemen who know whereof they speak. From Newsmax, Washington, General Michael Hayden, retired from the U.S. Air Force, and during his long career in Washington, he served at different times as director of both the National Security Agency and Central Intelligence. And Skyping in from Tampa, former Army intelligence officer Colonel Derek Harvey. He's currently the director of the Global Initiative on Civil Society and Conflict as a professor at the University of South Florida. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. Mike, we just heard General Odierno. Are we going to need boots on the ground?
JD, that's as close as you get in the American system of having an American military officer on his way out simply make the point that they didn't follow my advice. What General Odierno was simply saying is we've been under-resourced and over-regulated in terms of what it was we're doing with our combat forces in Iraq. I think anybody who's looked at the circumstances there knows we needed to embed below the level of brigade, which is the current limit, and we need tactical air control parties forward. I think he's just pointing out the obvious military logic, and he feels a bit more free to say it since he's going over the side in just a few days.
And yet diplomacy and protocol perhaps demanded using the term embedding soldiers. Derek Harvey, how would you envision embedding American soldiers to fight Iraq?
Well, I understand that what we want to do is really put small teams, special operators, and small support teams with the ability to call in air support for the strikes to make those more effective and push those down to battalion level. They would need a force protection package, of course, and they would be very careful about selecting which units and which areas they would operate in when they begin to do this type of embedding. But clearly, Central Command headquarters here in Tampa, forward headquarters elements, as well as folks in the Pentagon, have known for some time if we're going to try to achieve results on the ground to turn this around, we were going to need to embed and improve the direct action capabilities of our special operation forces in theater.
Well, Mike, listen to Derek explain this whole notion of embedding. On one hand, it sounds like Back to the Future. Remember the early days, post 9/11, small units in Afghanistan with heavy air power, but then we brought in a huge force. We had to have force protection and left a big footprint. Mike, does embedding to you mean small groups calling in selected strikes or something else?
No, I think Derek has it just right. We're talking about tactical air control parties, JD. Derek mentioned those. We're also talking about American advisors, and I do mean the word advisors, at echelons below brigade. Derek mentioned battalion. I think we might see some out there at the company level giving advice, encouragement, and stiffening to Iraqi units that remain somewhat wobbly. I think it's the price we have to pay. Now look, JD, that does put Americans more in harm's way. I get it. But not doing this might mean failure or might mean an even greater commitment of American forces at some time in the future to avoid failure.
Gentlemen, 2.5 minutes remain. Pardon the pun, but let's talk Turkey. As the U.S. has started sending manned airstrikes from Turkey, from Incirlik Air Force Base, to target ISIS. And, of course, Turkey has allowed these bases to be utilized, and Turkey is launching its own strikes against ISIS. Michael Hayden, give us your assessment of where we are right now in our relationship with Turkey.
Well, JD, being able to use Incirlik and the 10,000-foot runway there is a good news story when it comes to efficiency of airstrikes. The effectiveness of airstrikes is going to continue to depend upon really exquisite targeting. But, JD, this is an important point to make. We paid a very high price for that 10,000 feet of concrete. because the Turks now are actively involved in bombing not ISIS, but Kurds in northern Iraq. And that's an entirely different proposition, which they are doing, it seems, as part of a package deal to let us fly out of Turkey.
As we take a look at this, and man, it's almost like you got to have a program to check the scorecard and the different animosities that are out there. But before we go, with a minute and a half left, I want to switch back stateside as a hacking group, we believe affiliated with ISIS or some pro-Islamic group, sent out a warning to you members of our military, Derek Harvey, hacking in, saying, here's a list of addresses for military families, both here and overseas. Derek, if you were still in the service, how seriously would you take this threat?
Well, I think that we always have to be on guard and worried about, the possibility, especially with their ability to inspire lone wolf attacks and the type of agitation that is occurring in some of our communities in the United States. That is a point of concern, and I know that's a point of concern here at MacDill Air Force Base.
Michael Hayden,
the former soldier, I would not be particularly worried about it, but I would make sure that I took some precautions in my day-to-day life.
Yeah, psychologically, Michael Hayden, for guys here on the home front, 15 seconds to you, what should be done?
Keep calm, carry on, but if you see something, JD, say something.
That's a succinct philosophy to follow. Michael Hayden in Washington, Derek Harvey in Tampa. Gentlemen, you have our thanks. We'll continue to monitor the situation. There is lots more to come in this edition of Newsmax Prime, so stay right where you are.